Afternoon, directors.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Can I have confirmation of quorum?
Tom, you want?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Adopt the public agenda.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Anything to add? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, call carried. We'll move into item C1, closed.
Move,
That report of CAO be received.
move receipt of the report from the CAO regarding the closed session.
Director Lee,
Second.
second. Director Cornfield,
Yep.
any discussion? I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Move that we go in camera under section 91 FG LKNO and 92B of the community charter.
Okay, seconder.
Second.
Okay.
Just if I can, Mr. Chair,
Director Cornfield,
for point of clarification, I believe it was 91I, not 91L.
Okay,
Okay.
so little
Thank you.
I can't read it.
And Mr. Chair, just clarity, we're moving into closed session now rather than at the end of the agenda, is that correct?
that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed?
Am I okay to be here during the closed session?
That Associate Director Jules?
Yep.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, that's so. When should I return, or is it a closed
Mhm.
session?
He will get a hold of you when we're ready to go back into open.
Okay, thank you.
And then we're on to item D, petition delegations. There's nothing. Adoption of the minutes for the regular board meeting, January 27th.
Move adoption.
Okay, second by Director Mogul. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, no public considerations, no notice of motion.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question under public considerations around our ability to have public participation or at least media presence at these meetings. Are we working toward that?
CEO?
I'll let Tom answer.
Mr. Chairman, we are working within the confines of the current provincial health order, which basically excludes all public from physically attending our meetings. So in the absence of having any ability for the public to view live streams, we're looking at what we can do in the meantime to generate more public access. So that is an ongoing process that we're looking at.
And on
In
that
the
note,
interim, what might we consider in the absence of the public, which I think other local governments have figured out how to do, but in the absence of that, could we invite some key media to join us so at least they can be reporting out to the public?
My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that under the current public health order, we cannot.
Okay, thank you.
Much as we would like to do that, we just cannot.
and Mr. Chair, I just want to make note that staff are getting the minutes out by Friday. So we're getting the minutes and the recording available really quickly after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Director Davis, no, we're now on notice of motions. Did you have something?
Okay, yes, I do have a notice of motion. I did submit it previously. My notice was the Strathcona Regional District contribute $1,000 to the Vancouver Island Climate Planning Leadership Committee to assist in funding their upcoming First Nation and Youth Climate Leadership Summits, and I can put that in the chat.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe Director Davis was planning to bring this up as a supplementary to his director's report, which is on the agenda.
Okay. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So there's nothing else there, no motion, chair's report, had like nothing really to report on at this time. Consent calendar, committee chair reports. First Nations Committee. The draft minutes for the inaugural meeting for January 27th be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
Lee, second Director Davis. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. External reports, there's nothing under staff reports. Number 1, insider influence allegations. Director Anderson, motion to receive report.
That wasn't me that moved that, but I would like to declare conflict and recuse myself. And I'm just asking, do I come back into this same meeting then when I'm done?
Yes. So I think Edie has your cell, and probably the easiest thing to do is leave, and she'll text you and then rejoin.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we had a motion to receive and seconded, and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just want to, this is on alleged insider influence on Director Anderson. Once again, this issue was brought forward to the board a few meetings ago. The board had a staff report, and then we received a rebuttal from Director Anderson and her legal team. We have got advice from our legal counsel earlier today, and the report is for you with options should the board choose one of those.
Can we please see the report? Thank you, Tom.
Yep. Do you have any questions? Seeing none. Call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Any Director Mogov, you have a?
So, yeah, so I had a subsequent, and I did send it in to Edie earlier today.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to, so my motion is basically in basically option 3 of the report. And specifically, it says that the board proceed with the following action based on information obtained from legal counsel while in closed session. That the regional district legal counsel shall speak to a prepared letter to be provided to the director, advising the director of the board's expectations regarding communications between directors and regional district staff and the rules and policies surrounding those communications.
Seconder.
Thanks. And if I could speak to this, and I did get help with staff to word it so that it was it sort of complied with what had been recommended with our council. In terms of looking at the different options that are available, I would argue that option 1 is really not viable in the sense that the chances of success, in my view, are fairly low, just based on the circumstances of this particular case, and just looking objectively at it and listening to our council. And I think the risk to the organization, should we not succeed, if we were to lose, could be quite significant. I also think that option 4 is off the table in the sense that we can't just do nothing, because the behavior needs to be addressed. So that leaves option 2 and option 3. Option 2, I think, is not what we should be doing, because we've already done the censure route, and let's face it, it's fairly toothless. Doesn't really have a lot of ramifications, and the last censure, not everything in the censure has been followed. So that leaves option 3, and I think that's the best for now for a variety of reasons. One is that it will be on the public record. It's a public statement by legal counsel indicating what we expect, what the board expects, and it can't be challenged in the sense that we're not going to be continuing on and on this issue. So that's why I chose to move forward with option 3. Thank you.
Need a second, I believe.
Second, Davis.
Brad is muted.
Oh, Brad, you're muted.
Sorry, Director Abram, go ahead.
Director Davis second it, by the way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had my hand up too. Who's
Yeah.
up first?
Director
You are.
Abram, go ahead.
Okay, so I appreciate Claire's her option, which was 3, I believe. And just so that I can be absolutely clear that I understand, I'm reading that we received information from our legal counsel while in closed session, which we just did, and that the regional district legal counsel shall speak to a prepared letter to be provided to the director advising blah, blah, blah. Does that mean that we will invite the director in and the lawyer will read this letter to her to spell out exactly what we expect? If that is the case, I would completely support it, because then it is on record, it is on public record at an open meeting, and there is no dispute.
So if I can, Mr. Chair, just to interject here. So Director Abram is mostly correct there. We cannot force anyone to attend the meeting. So Director Anderson has left the meeting. We have a letter prepared in anticipation that the board chose this. So there is a letter prepared. We do have legal counsel that will speak to it, but we cannot force, and we can do that in open session, and we can make it on the public record. We just cannot force Director Anderson to participate in the meeting. She's declared that I believe she's in conflict. That's a decision of her own, but we can certainly speak to it even though, and address it to Director Anderson, even though she's not physically in the room.
Okay, so that, if I could just, as a subsequent, I didn't say force, I said invite. And secondly, if what you just said, Dave, at the very end, the lawyer can actually speak at this meeting to the letter, can read the letter to the public, even though Director Anderson is not present. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So again, Director Anderson has been invited to the meeting. She's chosen to leave, but that doesn't stop the board from voting on this motion and having Catherine Stewart speak to the director, even though she's not physically here. It's on the record and it's open session.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Abram. Director Colburn?
Thank you, Chair. And I think that answered most of my questions. I just think that it's important that this is a point for public reference, that, you know, it makes it definitely clear from staff, directors, and to the public what the expectations are of directors and their conduct in, you know, in their public lives. So I think that it's a great letter, and I would appreciate that being in the public record. We can all take lessons from it.
Thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you. Just a heads up, I will have a subsequent to this after this motion.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Director Adams?
The motion is that the chair of the SRD be authorized to write a letter to the Provincial Government Attorney General's Office requesting the implementation of an integrity commissioner.
Second.
Thank you. Speaking to the motion, For those that attended the virtual Local Government Leadership Academy last week, Mr. Ricarding again talked about, had a session on the value of having an integrity commission, which the province of British Columbia does not have, but other provinces do. And it is very helpful in guiding local governments, regional districts in matters that are maybe beyond their capability or scope to handle. Thank you.
Yep. Moved in second. Director Mogul, question?
Thank you, and thank you, Director Adams, for bringing this forward. I think this goes to an issue that has been of concern of mine, and I think to the board for a while, and that is the lack of teeth, so to speak, of the community charter. There's not a lot that we can do, and not a lot a local government can do when they find themselves in a situation where there may be some behavior that is not appropriate. I think this is one way to try to alleviate that situation. So I appreciate this coming forward.
And just a correction to Mr. Yates, it's an integrity commission, not just an officer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, on the subsequent questions called, anyone opposed? Seeing none, call carried. And I'll go to Ms. Stewart now to read the letter. Catherine, you still on?
Yeah, she's there.
Yes. Hi. Through the chair, I've been asked to speak to a letter which has been prepared to Director Anderson, which sets out a statement of expectations of the board in relationship to the communication between staff and elected officials. Further to the representations made on your behalf during the January 27th board meeting dealing with the application of Section 102 of the Community Charter to your December 17th, 2020 email to staff, the board wishes to notify you of this statement of expectations. The purpose of the statement is to provide a warning and a notice of the board's expectations of director conduct with regional district staff members and other members of the board. The use of personal email does not immunize a director from the application of Section 102 of the Community Charter. In cases where the influence or attempted influence is taking place between the elected official and an officer or employee of the local government, or at a meeting of the local government as provided for in Section 102 sub A of the Community Charter, the person receiving the communication will undoubtedly know the person is an elected official. Consequently, the use of personal email does not create an immunity from the application of Section 102. Also, the letter wishes to provide notice of the recommendations contained in the Local Government Management Toolkit on Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy. This toolkit recommends that elected officials use their local government email addresses for local government business. And I have been advised that your use of personal email addresses for regional district business is ongoing, and this would not be advisable in the face of the recommendations in the LGMA toolkit. Further, there was also a point raised regarding a statement if you made to staff that you were acting in your personal capacity, that would immunize you from the application of Section 102 from the Community Charter. Stating that you were acting in your personal capacity does not necessarily mean that you are not using your office and does not immunize an elected official from the application of Section 102. Of course, there are a number of circumstances where an elected official could communicate with a staff member in his or her personal capacity, and that would not be a breach of Section 102. But not every instance would be immunized by a statement that you were acting in your personal capacity. Examples would include, for example, an official could communicate directly with staff when they were paying their taxes, purchasing a dog license, or applying for a building permit. And in those cases, the staff member is not exercising any discretion such that influence would make any difference to the outcome of their decisions, recommendations, or actions. This leads to a statement of expectation from the board that careful consideration of Section 102 must be made by a director before communicating with regional district staff to ensure that the communication does not fall under Section 102. It is better to err on the side of caution and to act prudently in this regard. If there are any questions that the communication might fall under Section 102, it is best to seek advice beforehand, remembering that the regional district does have a policy about directors' direct communication with staff members. The policy says that should a director communicate directly with a staff member who is not senior management, that staff member is to advise senior management of the communication forthwith and make no response themselves. So this letter serves as a notice of this policy for future communications with staff members. Also, as a repeated reminder, the Regional District Code of Conduct sets out in Section 21 a number of requirements dealing with interactions between elected officials and staff. And of import here is Section 21 sub A, which says that directors must not direct or influence or attempt to direct, influence, or issue instructions to any member of staff in the exercise of their duties and functions. Further, I also raise through this letter the board's statement of expectations in Section 24 of the Code of Conduct bylaw, which states that the board as a whole, not individual directors, give direction to staff through passage of board resolutions. It is of the opinion of the board that in sending your email of December 18th, 2020 to a member of staff, you did not consider carefully Section 102 of the Community Charter, the Code of Conduct, or the Regional District Policy regarding staff communication. The board expects you to conduct yourself in accordance with this legislation and the Regional District bylaws and policies. This information is provided so there can be no mistakes about what is expected to avoid future possible contraventions. And that's the end of the letter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Coates. Quick question, Tom. Tom, do I need a motion to receive the letter?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't believe so. I believe the motion made by Director Moglove covers the authority for the board to proceed with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Director Colburn.
So then will paper copy be available of this through our minutes then?
Correct.
Thank you.
Director Cornfield.
Is Director Anderson not at this part of the meeting?
No, she declared conflict and left.
Okay. Are we going to be sending her registered letters to ensure that she gets a copy of it?
We will send it via a number of ways, electronic and physical.
Okay, but should it not be registered or double registered so that we know that it's received?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, is it required as a further amendment to the motion, or are we?
No.
No? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing no other questions, so I'll call question on the motion. No, we already did that.
Yeah.
We've already done a letter, so we can move on.
Edie, can you text Director Anderson to invite her back?
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Catherine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, maybe just give Director Anderson a minute here to
Yes, I
jump
will.
back on.
Thank you.
Can we not just hand her a copy of that letter at this meeting as part of the record, rather than double registered and et cetera, et cetera?
We'll email it to her as well, so she'll get it. Don't worry.
And don't forget, it'll be in the minutes too.
It will
Yeah, I
also,
just thought it would be a simple, easy way to do it.
will also be, of course,
Staff will look after it.
all through the video.
I'm in. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to staff report number 2, 2021-2025 draft financial plan. Motion receive report. Director Evans,
Second.
Director Lee, the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we have here is a draft financial plan, and we've just dissected the part that's relevant to the board and regional services. We gave electoral areas theirs this morning. We'll do the gardens this afternoon. So what you're going to see here is a draft plan for the regional services, local government, general government, that kind of thing, in a presentation in a moment. I just want to add to it, unique year, as we all know. There was no business cases brought forward by staff in anticipation of trying to keep the budget and the impact to residents as low as we can. So what we'd normally have done, we would have put in those business cases into the report and then brought it back to the board and said, hey, what do you think about that? Well, we don't have anything to inject into it. There was a few comments from electoral areas that we'll sort out, and maybe there will be from the gardens. But what you're seeing here is basically a draft budget. It includes year-to-date numbers. It includes current assessment numbers and use of the COVID relief money that the provinces provided, and strategic use of surpluses that the staff feel appropriate. I think our finance team and all the staff have done a fantastic job, and I think you'll be quite pleased with what the numbers you see moving forward, as staff have made an incredible effort to have as minimal impact as we possibly can to the municipalities. As we know, they have struggled a little bit more than regional districts with losses of revenues, and not wanting to compound that further with additional increases. So I'll turn it over to Mike. He's got a nice high-level presentation for you, and we're happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thanks, Dave. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Okay, so I hope that's large enough for everybody. Yeah, Dave covered most of it. I'll just add that we did a big revision to the actual financial plan document, so I'm hoping it should be easier for all our taxpayers to read and follow. But if you have any suggestions, you could let me know. We cut out a lot of the pages, but actually added more data to it. So I hope everything is clear. For readability, we made some big improvements, and we switched from quoting negative numbers for all the revenue amounts, which was a big barrier for a lot of people. And we also replaced a lot of the tables with some charts to make it a little bit more graphical and quicker and easier to read. As far as the proposed budget timelines, we're just basing it off the next 3 meetings. We do have to the end of March to formally adopt it, and of course we could amend after the fact. So I'll take any changes I get and incorporate them into the plan. Then we got a little bit of cleanup to do as far as some carry forward amounts, but that won't affect any of the requisitions you'll see here. That's just a bit of rebalancing. The other addition is Sean in the emergency services also recently got approved for another 100% funded grant. So we'll incorporate that in. But other than that, the tax numbers are all good to go. For some high level budget trends, we have the First Nations joining us this year. We have new services, home away from home and the library lending. The library lending won't have any actual requisition impact because all those expenses and the debt were going to be funded by Vancouver Island Library. We have tax reductions in, 100 is the member municipality administration and 110 is the corporate administration, and 500 planning. Essentially, we've had some staff vacancies, and of course, no one's doing much traveling and training this year with COVID, so there's a reduction there. The other big factor is 911, which affects everybody. They're changing the funding allocation. It hasn't been approved yet, but everything's leaning towards option number 3, where it's going to be done by population and assessment. You've incorporated that into the budget, but we incorporated their November budget totals. We've gotten revised numbers since that are actually down a little bit for us. So what you see in the plan is a bit conservative, and when everything gets finalized, I'll make any necessary changes. And as Dave mentioned, just in light of COVID and everything else, we're spending extra special attention this year to try and reduce any tax impacts and everything else. So as far as assessment changes, as we all know, there's two big in the plan. We speak a lot to residential tax rates and overall tax rates, and there's going to be a difference in between the two. So I've tried to quantify everything, but this first chart just looks at the assessment changes of your total tax bases. So if any particular area is above the average, any shared services taxes are going to shift over, and if you're below the average, the taxes will shift away. And again, in the financial plan, we start talking about, you know, the residential impacts. They're going to have an extra effect of how it gets distributed within the classes themselves every year. So, for example, if you look at Villages of Ballas, their residential portion of their tax base really accelerated faster than everything else. So if you're looking at residential tax rates, we could be showing an increase, but later on, when I look at the overall as a Ballas, it might show a lower number there, and that's just because we're looking at the overall tax rate. So sometimes there's a difference between the two. And at the last meeting, we had a quick question on the provincial factoring of how residential classes get assessed. If that's big enough, everyone can see it. The numbers in red is how everything's factored. So if you have, and these are all the applicable classes. So if each one has the applicable assessment, they're going to factor it. So essentially residential is worth 10 cents on the dollar. Utilities is worth 35 cents on the dollar. And so a brief example is if you were to apply a 2% tax to everything, it's off the effective tax base. So that will make a difference in tax. When you're looking at the individual areas, for example, if utilities if you lose $1 of assessment in utilities, you would need $3.50 of residential to make up for that. So in regional district taxes, it's quite a swing, but my charts now fully quantify everything. But in doing so, I might have added a bit of confusion, like I say, if I'm talking about residential or overall rates. So I'll try and be clear at which one I'm talking about. So the next set of charts are all individual. I'll try and just run them through really quick, and then we could circle back for any applicable questions. So City of Camp River, that requisition is going up about $8.78 per average home. And then at the top, you can see the total. So we expect the average homeowner should get billed about $388.77 for the regional district portion of the tax. And again, this chart over here is what measures the assessment impact. So regional broadband is a good example. There is actually no change to the requisition. It was a 0% tax increase, but residential will see a 25 cents per average home. And that's strictly because of the residential accelerating at a faster pace than the rest of the tax base. So I hope that's clear. For municipal admin, for example, we had a tax cut. You could actually say it was a $2.66 tax cut as far as the requisition is concerned, but 20 cents of that's residential, so it nets out at $2.46, if that makes sense.
Mike, can I jump in and ask something?
Sure.
For Chair? Have all the municipalities set their tax rates for their various tax categories? Is this based on what has been adopted by each of the municipalities?
Oh, in there, I can't comment on that because each municipality is separate, and we just give a just the we're only affected by the provincial allocation. So how that gets applied in the cities would be their own.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this may not hold up if the city of Campbell River adjusts its multiples.
We get down to that end, but yeah, we would have the same effect, but just how it gets rolled out to the city. Yeah, you're right. It would be dependent. So Village of Gold River, they're up $5.24 a home, and a big chunk of that is just for the assessment shift, switching from one to the other. I believe Gold River was posting the second highest growth rate out of the group of municipalities here.
So again, just to jump in to be clear, when Mike says that amount, the $5, that is the total per home per year. That's not per 100,000. That is net a $5 increase to the average home in Gold River for the year.
Last year.
Yeah. And then, like I said, at the end, I'll get to just the overall rate, which will be slightly lower than that number. For the Village of Sayward, I guess the thing to talk about here is the garbage. 2020 was actually an anomalous year where the rate really dropped because of we have a contractor who's doing the hauling ceased doing that. So this is probably better explained in the document. But this increase is actually a 2% increase over the 2019 rate, and the only reason you're seeing the big blue bar there is just because 2020 was lower than historically average. But overall, it's $10.72 per home, including all that, up to about $60 for 2021. Village of Tassus, again, these are the ones where the residential values are really skyrocketed over all the other classes. So you can see quite a bit of increase, but this increase only shows up on this chart because we're talking about the residential taxes. At the end of the presentation, I'll show the overall, and they're quite a bit lower. And last is the Village of Zabalis, same thing. It's going up $1.68 a home, which is 0 per 100,000, but it's the residential shift that's causing a lot of the change there, in addition to the new service. So what we did here is these dollar amounts are the dollar numbers that you just saw in the charts, and then we actually looked up. The Ministry of Finance every year publishes the total overall tax requisition and user fees for all the cities, villages in the province. So I just took those totals and then did the math. So the actual increase to the Campbell River is $8.78 a home, but it's fractions of a percent as far as what the overall I guess homeowner is going to pay at the end of the year, or this is overall for what everybody's going to pay.
So again, just to bring some clarity to that, is that everyone wants to know what the impact to residential homes is going to be. And with the regional district and the variety of services and the way we apportion, it's really difficult to say your X number. So what we've done is take the increase per average home and translate that into a percentage that an average person on that average tax bill will get. And for example, in Campbell River, you could confidently say to a Campbell River homeowner that the regional district has added a 0.19% to their requisition for 2021. So as you can see, numbers are very, very low.
Yeah. And my last slide is just the overall dollar increase for what the Strathcona Regional District is requisitioning. It's an increase of 0.47%, so it's about 0.5% above last year, and that's just for the like I say, the ad valorem tax increase. And that's what I got. If anybody has questions, we can circle back and handle them one by one.
Excellent. Do we have questions? Director Cornfield?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay, thank you. Director Moglove.
Thank you. The question I had relates to North Island 911, and I know that the corporation is contemplating moving to this new apportionment. But there's the other aspect to the financial plan for North Island 911 is the inclusion of additional revenue from the new contract with Cowichan Valley Regional District. And was that taken into account, those figures, in the preparation of this draft financial plan?
So if I can, are you talking about 911 adding partners, if you will, to that?
Yes.
And then, so we haven't, but what I'm assuming you're getting at is we add a partner and then the requisition is spread a little bit thinner amongst all the rest of the partners.
I was wondering, yes.
Yeah, so we haven't done that yet. But what you see in that $8 or that 0.19% for Campbell River is we have incorporated already into that the proposed increase to the 911 service. So that's already in there as a, you know, kind of worst case scenario. And then if 911 adds a partner and that requisition drops down, that will come out of the $8.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to note that on pages 10 and 20 of the report, City of Campbell River is contributing $10.8 million for the SRD service, and Area D is paying $6.5 million. That accounts for $17.3 million, which is 78% of the cost to run the SRD. And I just want all directors to remember that. Thank you. Oh, I also want to note, thank you, Mr. Armston. Great presentation. You must have been trained really well from your previous employer.
It's current leadership that he's feeding off.
There we go.
Truth be known.
What was that page that you were quoting from, Andy?
10 and 11.
10 and 11 or 10 and 20? Director Lee.
Just in response to Director Adams' last comment, Area D is significantly smaller in both population and assessment than Campbell River, and so per household, you're not contributing any different from Area D. And on the issue of broadband, I know that Area D is paying the highest per thousand of assessed value towards the broadband project. We're paying.
No, that's not accurate. No.
Well, in the report it says we're paying $12.92 for residents in Area D, and we have. I know that our CAO is moving towards getting information about people who are underserved in Area D and underserved by TELUS. So I would hope that since we're paying $12.92 per thousand of assessed value, that Area D will get those underserved neighborhoods south of Henry Road with landing sites and last mile services the same as the rest of the regional district.
Okay.
If I could add, if I could add real quick, the mill rate, the per 100,000 or the per 1,000 is the same across all regional districts, just because of the way that the proration of taxes work in pretty much all the G7 countries. They do it by assessed value, which yeah, the bigger house, the higher assessment, the more share of taxes you pay. And as far as Andy's comment, which is absolutely right on, but the other thing I'll point out is spending, I don't think is always, a bit philosophical here, but it's not the best. If you bring broadband, for example, yes, everybody is, chipping in a certain pair, but, that's pennies on the dollar for the actual benefit that's bringing into the island. So like any additional spend on the broadband, especially, I think we're funding 0.061% or something of the overall capital plan. So, every dollar of our taxpayer money going into that it reaps, like they say, 99% of federal money gets joined. So the actual benefit that we see here locally is, can't really be measured by a percentage. But anyway.
But my point is that Area D is paying in $12.92 per thousand, and so far we haven't been promised any landing site or any
no, that's not
any last mile.
No, again,
so
that's
we're paying for something.
Yeah, I have to interject, Director Lee. Neither things you said there were accurate. There is a landing site in Area D, and just for
Okay.
everyone's knowledge, we pay per assessed value on a number of things. Everyone pays equivalent to their assessment. Not
Okay,
one
I'm
is
glad
more
to hear
than the
there's a
other.
landing site in Area D and that we might get the last mile like every other community on the regional district board. Also, there was one other thing in the budget that I was wondering about, and that is Strathcona Gardens. Is it on this agenda
Yes,
or is it
yes.
on the next?
It's on the
Okay,
Gardens agenda.
it's on the Gardens agenda. Okay, because I'll ask the question there. But
Sure.
I just really wanted to point out to the board that Strathcona Gardens was, that function was established under bylaw 1213. And that bylaw says that Area D will be assessed on the basis of hospital assessment. Campbell River is based on converted assessed values. So I wanted to
we
make sure
understand that. Yeah, Mike understands
our
that,
new
yeah.
finance manager might not have picked up
No.
on that little nuance, but I wanted
Yeah.
to know that he knew it.
Okay,
He's well aware of that, yeah.
Okay,
thank you. Director Anderson?
Thank you. Toggling between multiple things here. Yeah, I mentioned a version of this at East this morning. In previous budget iterations, I remember going through the actual budget services and talking about what is on the work plan and how the budget is related to that. I super appreciate how this budget has been made much more user-friendly. I think Mike has done an excellent job in graphs and accessibility. And the presentation we got was sort of high-level trends and assessment and super useful. But it seems like what's at hand here is actual discussion about the services that we run as a regional district. And I would like to be able to get into those and discuss the work plan associated with the respective budgets there. I note that some of the services have pretty detailed notes at the bottom about what the anticipated goals, if you will, for the year are. I note especially the emergency program is quite detailed in that regard. I would like to hear a little bit from the Home Away from Home. I note that there isn't any notes about what we intend to be doing with that service this year. I also note in our strategic priorities, and it was really sweet to see that at the beginning of the plan, and I appreciate that, and I spent some time reviewing those. And we had agreed that transportation and housing would also be important strategic priorities. And then there were some sort of more motherhood issues around supporting health and well-being and developing robust economic conditions and adaptation, climate mitigation. So I would really like to hear from senior staff. I'm fully aware that it's been extremely anomalous year, and I'll provide a lot of latitude for that. But any thinking that is going towards trying to move on some of these other initiatives, climate mitigation, transportation, housing, and how we could be putting some of our funds towards supporting that. I notice in the 100 subsection, I don't remember the number, indeed on strategic priorities, there's an aggregate number there of, I forget, $200,000 or $300,000 or something, but it's not clear to me what the intended work there is, and I'd just love to know that, please.
Well, if I can, Mr. Chair, we didn't anticipate this session to include that, and I would humbly suggest if this is information that the board would like in a report, it would take some time for staff to put something together. This is a review of the draft financial plan for comment if there's any changes. It's mid-February now. We need to get the plan completed soon. So I think there's a lot to it. Director Anderson has asked there, and I just don't feel comfortable off the cuff going line by line and talking about work plans and what's going to happen in each one. This is a report for the draft financial plan, and if there's a subsequent resolution that wants a deeper dive, staff are happy to provide that.
And I'll just conclude by saying that I've never not supported a budget, and I really want to be able to support a budget, but in my mind, they're intricately linked, the work plan and how we fund that implementation of that work plan. And this is the first time the board has seen this recommended plan, and it seems like this is the best time to make substantive changes to this budget based on what we understand that we're going to be doing with the budget. And I've just never known a financial planning process that didn't have some of that embedded information in it. So I'm just incredibly uncomfortable. So I'd love to know what we intend on doing in the home away from home service, for instance. Let's just be really specific this year.
That's you.
Do you want me to go one by one? Home away from home is an in-camera discussion. There's issues in there that I'm not going to speak to publicly.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Director Evans.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to declare a conflict of interest if we're going to talk about home away from home, function 145, as I'm on the board of directors for Children's Health Foundation Vancouver Island, which this project is initiated by.
Okay, well, at this point, we're not. Director Adams.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Director Lee, and my comment of making a note of Area D's contribution was just to recognize the fact that they are the second largest financial contributor to the services of the regional district, and to say thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may seem like a silly question, but when I went through the table on our populations and our hospital assessments and general purpose assessments, and I was also looking at Area D relative to Campbell River, and we're roughly 8 times the population in the city of Campbell River. We have 5 times the number of directors. We have roughly 8 times the votes, which is fine. That's relative to population. But when I got to the assessments, I was surprised that we're only have 6 times the assessed values. And I was wondering if there was a reason for that. That's a significant difference. $1 billion worth of assessments in the Oyster Bay Bottle Lake and $6 billion in the city of Campbell River. So how does the distribution of dollars, if it's based on hospital assessment purposes, would seem to be that we are paying less than our share, if that makes sense?
I'll go to CEO.
Well, if Mike's got something better, I'll defer. But I mean, assessments are not something we're involved in. They're information that's provided to the regional district from the province. So I'm certain you have some good points. I have no answers for that. You know, we don't have any involvement in the assessments.
Okay, so assessments don't link up to population or.
If I could add something real quick. The thing with Area D is they have a huge section of managed forest lands, which really throws. So, say if this is probably way too much information, but if everybody can see that, like there's Area D, and if you actually look at this is the total value of assessed, but there's a residential. But yeah, they get the huge chunk of managed forest lands, which really, you know, throws their assessment values. So the actual physical size of Area D is even though you know, Campbell River has the population and everything with the downtown assessments, but as soon as you expand that out to the area and you look at all the provincial land leases and stuff, it adds quite a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I see 4 hands up and they were up and down and up, so I don't know if they're still want to be up or not.
I'm still up, Director Lee, for the second time.
Okay, is there anybody else for the first time and not seen anything? Director Lee, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a minor thing, but I noted that there was 1 million in Area D's grant and aid budget, and last year it was 64,450. I think we need to maintain the grants and aid. I've been getting requests from organizations. They're hurting during COVID. They will need help. I just think that we should maybe reinstate the maximum GIAs for Area D.
Okay, thank you.
do I have to make a motion to that effect, that the budget be amended to?
Sorry, real
Um,
quick.
That the budget be
actual-
amended to reinstate the Area D grants and aid to $64,450, I believe it was last year.
I have a quick input on that.
Okay.
So this year's spending, the reason it popped in for 2021 is because there was a lack of actual spending. So the budget's been relatively consistent, but all the grants and aid functions don't have a reserve that I could transfer excess cash to. So just to keep the requisition stable or anything else, you don't see the big pots. Well, there's going to be a bit of a dip, but that's the reason why it went up. But I could definitely lower
so this 48,610 that's in the budget does not include the surplus from last year?
The surplus is right below it. That's the 36,106.
Okay, so
yeah, if you want the requisition up, yeah, I can increase.
What's the total? What's the total I have available then in grants and aid in Area D for 2021?
You could spend roughly $84,000.
Oh, well then don't change anything. That's plenty.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And this will come back again in the next meeting, directors. So thanks, Mike and staff. On receipt, is anyone opposed? See none, carried. On to item 3, proposed emergency financial assistance guideline. Report from CEO be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
3, Director Adams, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, this one.
Okay. On receipt. See nothing. Question? Anyone opposed? See none, carried. On item B.
Mr. Chair, could we see the agenda on the screen, please?
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on item B. Detailed enough be proposed to change the financial assistance for emergency response cost. A guide for BC First Nations and local authorities be prepared for the budget's consideration. Need a motion?
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Joe, any discussion? See none, question? Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 4, John Hurt.
I'll move 4 and have a subsequent.
Second.
Joe. That was 4, right? 4, 5, 6, Director Adams?
Sure.
No, what are you talking about? 4, 5, and 6?
No, they're different reports there.
2 different reports.
Right.
Yeah,
We're on number 4, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good received. Anything to add, CEO?
No, just the BC Hydro has asked for a letter of support for the John Hart Seismic Dam Upgrade Project.
Joe? Any questions on receipt?
Yes, I have it.
Director
Well, I thought the John Hart project was finished. They're working on the Strathcona Dam upgrade now. So I don't understand why they're referring to it as the John Hart project. It's complete as far as I know. And they're working in Area D on the Strathcona Dam.
Well, Mr. Chair, if you can see the attached correspondence from Stephen Watson, we are just forwarding a request from BC Hydro for the letter of support. So
I know, it's bizarre because they've already completed the project. So why do they need a letter of support?
That's what they're requesting.
Mr. Chair.
Director Cornfield.
Just really quickly, Brenda, they did the generation project, which is finished. This is the seismic upgrading for John Hart Dam, which was not part of the first project. Hence, they need the letter of support to do the seismic upgrade for the existing dam.
Okay.
That's the John Hart Dam, not the Strathcona.
Correct.
That's correct. They're doing that and the Lador as well.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 5.
No,
Did Director Adams had a
Sorry,
subsequent?
Director Adams?
that the chair be authorized to write a letter of support for BC Hydro.
Second.
Second, Evans.
Thank you, Director Evans. Any discussion? Seeing none. Wait for you to have it finished. Make sure we got it right. Look good, Director Adams? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 5.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I have to declare a conflict of interest as I sit on one of the economic development corporations for Mamilaqua.
Okay, thank you.
First Nation.
Thank you. So on receipt, sale.
Thank
Motion
you.
received, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Motion received.
For
Second,
second.
Kill, sale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let Tom speak to that.
Mr. Chairman, this is another referral from Indigenous Services Canada regarding a proposed reserve allocation on the side of Campbell River, bordering electoral area A and including part of property within electoral area A. So it's presented this time simply for the board to decide if you wish to have comments made. You can certainly do that. If you wish to refer it to a committee beforehand, you can certainly do that. We do have some time in order to consider this, so it's really at the board's pleasure.
Thank you. Any questions?
I would like to see this referred to the planning department to give us an idea of on a map of how much is in area A and how much is in Campbell River.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, there's a few options. I know the board decided to refer to electoral areas and First Nations last time, so there's a number of options should you choose that.
Okay, so we're still on receipt. Anything else on receipt? Seeing none, questions? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Anyone wish to put a motion forward?
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. I note that Charlie Cornfield declared a conflict, but I think is still here. I'm just wondering if that's an issue. When I declare conflict, I usually leave. I just don't want anyone to get into trouble.
Good point.
So, Mr. Chairman, the rule under the statute is that when a member declares a conflict, they are supposed to explain what that conflict is and leave the meeting.
Cool. So Director Cornfield? Charlie, you there? Maybe he left his room.
I think he probably did.
Yeah. Okay, so let's. Tom, should we move on, or do we have to get a hold of Charlie to sign off?
Mr. Chairman, I believe you simply received the report. If there's a subsequent that the board wishes to make, they could put that on the table and debate that.
Could I just make a subsequent?
Director Adams?
That this be referred to the next closed session of the board.
Second.
Joe? Any discussion? Seeing none, question, is anyone opposed?
That'll be over by 3.
Seeing none, carried. Item 6, Advisory Planning Commission, electoral area B. Motion to receive report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Joe?
Second.
CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pass this to Tom.
Mr. Chairman, simply report to the board to advise that one of the appointees to the Electoral Area B Advisory Planning Commission, I believe that was made in January, is not eligible for that position, so recommending that be rescinded.
Okay, Joe? Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, could you see that agenda again, please?
Just, I think it was self-explanatory in my little note to staff there. It was just an oversight, I think, by planning staff and myself. The list that was offered by planning staff was one, I think, before Corey was my alternate. So apologies for the oversight.
No problem. Thank you. Anything else on receipt? See none. Question? Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Item B. the appointment of
Move
Corey
item
Fowler.
B.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? See none. Question? Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Bylaw 415 Sayward Valley Recreation Community Use. Motion receive report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, second by
Second.
Second.
Director Lee. Thank you. CEO.
Nothing to add from staff, Mr. Chair.
Kill. Any discussion? See none. Question? Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Item B.
Move that bylaw number 415 being Sayward Valley Recreation Community Use Service Establishment Bylaw 1994, Amendment number 4 be now reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? See none. Question? Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Correspondence?
Move
One
receipt
item,
of the
Fisheries-
correspondence.
Kill. Second. Any seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? See none. Call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. No members report, no management report. No
Move
new business.
termination.
Second.
Mr.
and
Chairman,
seconded.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe there was an item under the members' reports.
Right, Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just bringing this forward for everybody's information. It was based on a conference we had November 6th and input from various members of different municipalities and regional districts that contributed to it. And I was bringing forward a subsequent motion regarding this. If we could bring that motion up. That the Strathcona Regional District contribute $1,000 to the Vancouver Island Climate Planning Leadership Committee to assist in funding their upcoming First Nation and Youth Climate Leadership Summits, because we're looking for.
Do you second her first?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the board needs to receive this report first before they do a subsequent.
Okay, thank you. So the report will be on the next agenda?
No, I'm suggesting that before the board consider a subsequent motion.
Move receipt of Director Davis's report.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anyone opposed?
Questions?
Questions? Go ahead.
Can I just make a comment first regarding this motion?
We're still on receipt, so let's go receipt first. So Director Cornfield.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. Do we know how much money is being contributed by everyone else and what the total cost of this Climate Leadership Summit for Youth and First Nations is?
No, we don't at the moment. We're sort of running low on funds. I know in the past, a lot of this has been funded by the City of Victoria and some other sources. There's been a lot of work in kind put into it from everybody, but there is some cost for hosting these online forums. So we're just trying to raise money regarding that. And just to put it in context, the regional district did approve me for expenses for attending these meetings, and since the COVID thing happens, I've been doing them all online. I don't receive any remuneration. And I did some back of the envelope calculations and probably saved about $2,200 in expenses to physically attend these meetings. So just to contextualize this isn't really a big contribution in that sense.
I think I still had the floor,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, and that's without knowing what the full cost is or the cost of proportionment to others, including First Nations. I can appreciate it, but I can't support a motion of $1,000 to who knows how much. You know, and yeah, so. Anyway.
Any other questions on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now on Director Davis's motion. Moved. Do I need a seconder?
Second.
Carried, Director Abram. Any discussion?
If you like, I could bring this motion forward at the next meeting and get more information regarding the concerns that Director Cornfield had raised.
If you want to defer your motion to the next meeting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Second.
Director Abram, you okay with that?
Did that motion not just pass though?
No.
No,
Yeah,
we're
I
just on the sheet.
think the motion should go ahead, and Director Davis would like to bring forward a further report. That would be fine. I think we should show our support now.
Okay.
When we vote on it, Mr. Chair?
Question on the motion then.
I have my hand up.
Director Cornfield.
I will move that this item be referred to the upcoming board or to the next board meeting with clarity on the total cost.
Second.
Okay, your motion was for defer, second by Director Davis.
I have an amendment to that motion.
It's been deferred. It's been deferred.
Well, I'd also like to know.
The motion, Director Lee, the motion has been deferred to the next meeting.
Okay.
Question on the deferred motion. Anyone opposed? Hearing none.
Anderson opposed.
Abram
Director Anderson was opposed?
Abram opposed.
Yep. I'd rather deal with it now.
Anyone else opposed? Motion's carried. Management report, nothing. New business, nothing. Amendment items, nothing. Motion to terminate.
Move termination.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Question on termination. Anyone opposed?